Hello, my name is Fame and welcome back to another YouTube video. In today's video, I will be redrawing my old Walten files fan art. That's why I have all these sketchbooks out. I couldn't really find any more than this, so these will be the only ones I'll be redrawing. I think as well as one digital piece. I don't know, it just depends. First, I'll go over all the drawings I will be doing in this video. Some will be traditional, some will be digital. Keep that in mind as we go throughout the video, but the main focus will be the lore I'll be going over. I'll go over everything, I'll explain how I'll do it, but do keep in mind I will not be going as in-depth as other people do. I highly recommend you check the creator of the Walten files out. I'll have his YouTube up here. Give his videos a watch. They're all really good watches. With that being said, let's get into the art. These are really old, and when I mean really old, I mean they are pretty old. This is from 2021. Yikes. So, okay, before I get into anything, for the longest time, I had it was a type of art style, I guess, like an art face. I drew characters with really long necks and aggressive eye bags. It's only in this sketchbook. I don't know why, but I think it was because when I got into the Walten files, I think I was in my freshman year of high school. So I didn't really have much art supplies with me during school, so it was just like being creative, but oh my god, it was horrendous. So yeah, with that being said, I'll show you like a first piece. I don't know what these are. I just drew them in high school. I thought they were cute. See, this is what I mean. Really long necks, like really saturated colors, and like really aggressive eye bags. I won't be showing anymore. I cannot. We will not be doing that. Not in this video. So here we go. First one is Boozoo. Look at the forehead on him. Lord! Oh my god, like his video, the Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future, was one of my favorites. I rewatched that video a lot. But yeah, that's Boozoo. That's not him. Here's Jack. These are like my first drawings of the characters, so oh my god, I was slightly off frame, my bad. These are like the first drawings of these characters. Yo, anatomy was not good. Look how long his neck is. And here's Rosemary. Again, long necks, aggressive eye bags. I sucked at anatomy, okay? I didn't want to learn it, but yeah, those are it for this sketchbook. Don't have to see that anymore. The next one, I have no idea when I drew this, but I didn't finish it because this was the digital piece I was talking about. That's all I have to say for this. We're moving on. And here is this piece I really want to redo. Because every time I try to draw a piece like this, I gave up. Clearly. This was in what? No picking. I didn't write down when I drew this, but I think this was 2021? 2021, I think. Yeah, it could be 2021. I am not too sure. But yeah, and finally, the last piece I'll be redrawing is this one. This, my prized possession. I really like this piece. Like I said, I didn't have much art supplies, and I did want to kind of keep it, I don't know how to describe it, but I wanted to make it look unfinished and finished at the same time. Really long necks. Like, his neck is so skinny. Oh my god. But yeah, we'll be redrawing all of these pieces. Most likely, I will keep this one, and I have no idea. I think I'll do this one traditionally. This one might be digitally because I want to have like that really cool effect. This one will be digitally, and the other headshots will be traditionally. Let's hope I actually stick with that. Now I'll briefly go over the timeline. Well, not the timeline, the format of this video. Instead of going by the timeline wise, like, oh, this happened this day, this happened that day, I'll go by videos since that is a lot easier for me to do instead of trying to figure out when everything happened on the timeline. I'm not Matt Pat, y'all. I can't do it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you like this type of formatting, I don't think I've done this type of formatting before, but if you do enjoy this, let me know. I might redraw some more characters, or I might redraw from some other forms of media that I enjoy. But yeah, I'll quit talking your head off about the video, and we're gonna talk about the lore. Future Fame here. This video is a lot longer than I expected it to be, but I'm having a lot of fun making it, and hopefully people who enjoy series overview videos like this will also enjoy it. So I'll just briefly go over everything to expect in this video. First and foremost, this is a series overview video. This is not a theory video. I do have a few theories here and there, but this isn't really a theory video. Also, I'll be having some original clips and screenshots from the series in this video, but before each one, I'll be sure to put over like some tags a couple seconds before I show it, just in case there's any gore, which most likely there is, or flashing lights, loud noises, things like that, just so you can stay prepared. More towards the end, I do talk a bit faster so I can hurry up and get this information down before I end up making this video longer than it needs to be. It's 45 minutes as I'm recording now, but if people do end up liking this video and liking this length, I might consider doing more, but I will definitely be taking a small break because this video did take a lot to make. That's script making, drawing wise, getting the information, just everything in general. But anyways, let's get into the series. Walten Files is a YouTube series created by Martin Walls. This series has a disturbing, dark atmosphere surrounding a children's restaurant, Bond's Burgers, as well as its partner company, Bunny Smiles Incorporated. Bond's Burgers has 5 animatronics: Bond, Shaw, Boozoo, Banny, and Billy, also known as the Showstoppers. Video 1. Company Introduction Tape. This is an introduction tape to the company behind Bond's Burgers and what position the person watching this video applied for, which is facility caretaker. We are introduced to the Showstoppers, Bond, Shaw, Banny, and Boozoo, as well as the founders of Bond's Burgers, Jack Walten and Felix Kranken. BSI, also known as Bunny Smiles Incorporated, is the company that made the animatronics. We are also introduced to another one of the Showstoppers named Billy in a mini-episode called Bond's Super Sleepover. In the same mini-episode, it is revealed that Jack Walten is missing. They don't give us a time yet, but from the wiki, he went missing June 11th, 1974, 2 weeks before the place even opened up. We are now introduced to the new caretaker of the old Bunny Smiles facility, Brian Stells. While Brian explored the building, he informed us that his co-worker, Chris Easteryear, informed him that the building hasn't been working since either 1978 or 1979, 4 years before Brian even started working there. Unfortunately, before the video ends, we see Brian running through the forest only to be met with Bond and then mauled because, in quote, he thought I was her. He may have been the first victim, but he will not be the last. Video 2. Relocate Project. It's revealed that Bond's Burgers closed back on July 20th, 1974 and is finally using a backup plan after 4 years of legal work. During the 4-year gap, all the Showstoppers were placed in a secure storage unit months after the restaurants closed. A face shows up in the shipping truck, but it could either be Jack Walten or Charles Brooke. Charles Brooke is a character we'll figure out soon enough. A bunch of merch and even a TV show was created about Bond's Burgers, and eventually, Felix Kranken wanted to reprogram and relocate the Showstoppers to a new store in 1982. I do think that Bond's Super Sleepover was one of the TV shows they made for Bond's Burgers during this 4-year gap. It could just be me though. But anyways, the reprogramming section of the video starts, showing off Banny doing some motor function tests. However, during the test, we are shown Banny's face with the overlay of a woman's face in it. It cuts to the rabbit is starving clip next. Banny tries to escape a room, but no matter how many times she tries, she ends up back in the same room. While this happens, a voiceover talks about a rabbit trying to escape. After a few moments, the phrases, "the mighty rabbit needs to escape," and "the rabbit is starving" repeats as Banny continuously tries to escape the room. After this section, we see an old missing person poster for Susan Woodings, and using the clues from the previous section, it can be assumed that the face we saw in the Banny suit was indeed our missing person. The technical support section starts. It will be focused on the K9 Bunny Smiles storage facility. Before entering the K9 building, you go through a small checklist of items you'll need: a flashlight, snacks, keys, and a camera. At the end of our checklist, Minnie Bond and Jack Walten just stares at you. Shaw will guide us through the many rooms of this facility. As she guides you through the rooms, a shadowy figure can be seen following her sometimes and gives you more advice about working there. She stops in the basement and speaks in reverse quickly. Thanks to a YouTube video, it fixed the audio and reveals how Rosemary, Jack Walten's wife, would look for her husband at the old restaurant for weeks after he went missing. That was until one day she heard a voice from the backstage saying, "I know where he is, Rosie." She goes back to the basement and images of Shaw and Rosemary flash on the screen, making it clear that Rosemary is somehow in Shaw. But before those images flash on screen, we can hear Rosemary say, "Where am I, Sophie?" calling out to her daughter. Then we see, in my opinion, one of the first and most memorable clips of this series.
By the time the lady entered the backstage as the voice told her to, missing husband wasn't there. Instead, she found a rat.
Rose broken will fix you. You will beautiful. You will beautiful. You will beautiful.
After this clip, we see our poor Rosemary Walten dismembered and put into the Shaw suit. However, that wouldn't be the end of her suffering. We see her take control of the suit, saying, "Then she was beautiful, but on the inside, it felt like every part of her was bleeding." We see the Shaw suit flail its arms around as a creepy melody plays over it. Then we see Rosemary Walten's missing person poster. Now we skip to the final part of this video, where we are introduced to 3 new characters: Hillary B, Ashley P, and Kevin W, BSI employees. This tape is the 3 employees restoring the Bondsberger animatronics. Hillary talks about the weird rumors about this place, the flashing lights and the music playing at late hours, the missing persons cases, etc. After a day of work and going over the rumors and past experience with BSI, the 3 employees decide to get some sleep there. Before this night is over, the 3 employees make a small video going over the progress of the day and what was supposedly supposed to be the end of the log. But Ashley had other plans in mind. At the end of the previous log, Ashley mentions a key. That's when a new recording starts, where she is going around the building trying to find out where this key leads. The key ends up leading her to an area called the back rooms, which leads to another small corridor of doors. Through each of these doors, she finds a bunch of random things like scrap metal, supplies, decorations, merch. In one of the rooms she comes across, she finds a bunny animatronic much smaller than the rest. This bunny will have a few more appearances, so keep that in mind throughout this series. Finally, she comes to the last room and she meets Billy the Clown alone. Before, she planned to head back to the others, but instead she found a small cassette tape that goes to Billy the Clown. She inserted the tape inside of the recorder and it played a birthday song. But when it started to reach the end of the song, the audio glitched, revealing 4 names: Jack, Susan, Charles, and Rosemary, before going black. However, when Ashley brought the camera back up to see what was in the room, Bond was in front of her. Guessing by what's happened with other encounters with Bond, she did not make it. Before the clip ends, it shows an image of her face, slowly being distorted as screams are played. After, it cuts to a scene of Billy the Clown once again speaking. The audio glitches and we see Bond's hand going over the clown face, pulling the mask off, only for us to see Ashley's mangled face behind it. Video 3, Lucky You. This video goes over all the important dates, briefly showing images of things like the first birthday party, the showstoppers, and the closing day. However, in the middle of the video, it stops and it cuts to Bond speaking, saying he wants to tell us a story of broken people and how this will all make sense soon once we have more pieces. Then from that point on, Bond repeats safety and pills Sophie while showing us an image of a bear and a pill bottle with Sophie Walten's name on it. A few more seconds go by and we see some more weird imagery of the animatronics there. Then we see more text from Bond saying how he made them beautiful. He didn't know how, he didn't even mean to, but he did, and he seemed proud of it. Before the video ends, he tells us we have to wait and be patient. By we, he could be talking to Sophie since that is the only other name that is mentioned in this video. The video comes to a close with the endoskeleton of a CyberFun tech animatronic dancing to a very familiar song. Video 4, Boozoo's Ghost. This is a relatively long video compared to the others, but even so, there isn't much important information in this video. It is a retelling of one of many popular Christmas stories dealing with the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, of course with its own analog horror twist. This story surrounds none other than Boozoo. We see old characters like Benny and Billy the Clown, who is Christmas past, and we see an array of new characters like the Jolly Ghost of present time and mortality, which I think is one of the creepiest animatronics we've seen so far. The important part of this video happens more towards the end, when Boozoo sees his younger self, who soon succumbs to mortality's grip, and he do so but more graphically. Now let's talk about one of the most important videos of this franchise. Video 5, Bunnyfarm. The main and entire premise of this video is showing the gameplay of a game, Bunnyfarm, starring our beloved showstoppers. We get to watch and listen to Sophie Walten's reaction to the game as the topics get darker and darker. If it wasn't clear before, Sophie is one of Jack Walten's kids, the eldest to be specific. Her friend, the other person who isn't in the game, is Jenny Ledgerson. She tells Sophie about the game as well as some of the cases surrounding BSI. Sophie mentions that the art style of the game is familiar. This is kind of a spoiler, but it could be assumed that it's because of her mother, Rosemary Walten. One of the side effects of the medication Sophie has been taking is memory loss and foggy memories in general. This is an important detail to keep in mind. One of the first levels she decides to play is the Billy the Clown level, where you help him look around the restaurant for party decorations. While playing this level, she enters a room with a weird purple background. After playing a game of tic-tac-toe with Billy, he gives you a gift, but the gift is only a distorted image of Jack Walten. Soon after, the game glitches, but right before Sophie leaves, she runs into a gray rabbit. A gray rabbit we've seen one too many times in this series already. The rabbit's name is Rocket. The next day comes along and Sophie tries to play the game again, but all of her previous progress was corrupted. This time she decides to play the Bandy level, where she has to find all the pigs Bandy let out. After finding the key in Mr. Hippo's home, she enters the first room, where she has to properly arrange pieces of an image together. While she does that, we hear Sophie talk to herself, saying she thinks the game or the characters are trying to tell her something or get her to do something. Once the image has been properly restored, an image of a bloody Bandy robot shows up, followed by a backstage room. And then the name Susan Woodings appears. Right after, we get an audio log from Susan, recorded on June 30th, 1974. In the recording, Susan says she's staying at Bond's Burgers a little late to help clean up. She mentions that it's been a strange week and how opening the restaurant, even though Jack has been missing for a few weeks, also feels weird. Rosemary that same day came in asking about Jack, and apparently Felix has been worried as well. Susan is the engineer and the person responsible for making these animatronics, so she picked up on the glitches first during the kid's birthday party that day. Bond is the most irregular out of the bunch. She brings him to the back room to check on him before she leaves. She was the only one there. Charles left before her, and Felix never showed up. After that recording, we get a reenactment of her fixing Bond, only to meet the same fate as Brian and Ashley. We see a graphic image of her, then it slowly shifts into Benny. Soon after, we see Bond with a gift over his head. Then that image gets covered up by another image, a more graphic image of Susan Woodings with text at the bottom reading, "I am still alive, but I can't move, and I'm having trouble breathing, and my stomach feels weird." Bond then gives Benny a gift, and she begins to move, completing the level. You Made Susan Beautiful appears as you beat the level, and we once again see Susan's mangled face in the banny suit. Like the forgetful and unbothered queen she is, Sophie continues to play the game, still believing the events shown her were just a game. While still believing that this game is trying to tell her a story, she mentions how the pills she's been taking have resulted in most of her memories about her childhood being forgotten. She can't even recall why she's taking the pills anymore. As she goes to choose another level, she finds Linda Thompson's diary. She is Felix's ex-wife. Most of the pages are redacted, but the information we can get from these pages are the following. October 30th, 1964. Felix is acting strange, drinking more than usual, and she is worried. The same night, he came home at 4 a.m. crying, seeming stressed about something. She feels hopeless. August 23rd, 1965. She moved in with Felix last week and he seemed happy about it. Yesterday, Jack and Rose had their third child and her name is Molly. Jack and Felix have also been talking about a restaurant idea and working with a company called CyberFun Tech. December 26, 1970. Ed and Molly were gifted a doll, built by, I'm assuming, Jack and Felix Walten, and named it Rocket. Felix had a lot of drinks yesterday, and it's been a growing problem. He's a good guy, but doesn't want to address his drinking. It's getting worse, and he feels bad about it, yet he still doesn't change. January 3rd, 1973. It keeps getting worse. He's so focused on his project that he doesn't even notice the damage it's having on him. He only goes out to drink and stays at the warehouse to do the same. He won't listen to her. She doesn't know what to do. And finally, May 2nd, 1974. She writes a letter to Felix, saying she's leaving him. Something he said to her the other day made her realize something. The relationship wasn't healthy anymore. While he was at the warehouse, she was writing this. She ends the note saying she'll build her own life and he should too while he still can. But in red text at the bottom of the page are the words, "I'm sorry." It could be from Felix. Now she's on Boozoo's level, helping him set up for a kid's birthday party. While doing so, however, an image of a creepy, distorted face shows on screen with some text. Text I couldn't seem to figure out, but maybe you can. The game glitches again, showing the face. However, right before the game glitches and goes on to another section, we see Boozoo walk up to Bond, and then the image switch to a weird man's face over a red body. The game glitches, and now she's playing a game of Memorize. We've all played this game before, matching up two cards with each other and seeing how well your memory is. It all goes smoothly until she tries to match Boozoo with himself. After a few attempts, she manages to match both the images, but as she tries again, the images won't work again. She goes back and tries to repair the images. However, the second image of Boozoo is that weird distorted man we've seen from before. She wins the game glitches once more, and now she's playing Spot the Differences. Like before, it goes smoothly, but in the second round, we see a shadow person behind Bond. On the fourth round, she has to spot the difference between a picture of a regular looking man and a mangled image of the same man. The game glitches after she tries to spot the differences, and she finishes the game. An image of Boozoo as an animatronic appears. Right before she's able to claim her prize, that image of the man is over Boozoo's face. When she claims her prize, another variation of that mangled man's face appears, and the words, "Missing 07-14-74 repeats. When it stops repeating, we are met by a graphic image of a bloody Boozoo, and after that, another image of the man appears with some text saying, "I don't remember my face." If you watched Boozoo's Ghost and you're watching this video, don't the two mangled man faces kind of look similar? That could just be me. Sophie still seems unbothered by all the gore and graphic audio she's hearing, but the more she plays, she is becoming more familiar with these faces. These faces could be from her childhood, or maybe they had some relationship with her father, but even so, with the medicine she's taking, it is very hard for her to figure out who these people are. She returns back to the main map of Bunnyfarm, but as she explores, we see the missing persons poster for not only Susan Woodings, but the mystery man himself. Now she's playing Shaw's level. It starts with her and Bond conversing and agreeing to play a game of hide and seek. After a bunch of weird visuals, Sophie is playing as Bond and we're trying to find Shaw. We find her in a chicken coop. Another weird visual appears and we see a withered and torn animatronic Shaw. Now it's her turn to hide. Sophie hides in the forest and is soon found by Shaw after some eerie music plays. Once found, however, she asks,
"Am I still beautiful to you, Sophie?"
I know you found you.
As we just heard, Sophie claims to know the person. Then we're shown the backstage room with the text, "I know where he is, Rosie. Follow me." Another 10-second countdown is shown, and by far one of the scariest audios in this series is played as we see a distorted face over Shaw's face. Her terrifying and pain-filled scream continues on, but that is all I will be putting in this video. As we continue to hear her agonizing screams, we see some text in the caption reading, "Missing, Rosemary Walten, last seen, 07/19/1974. As the screams continues, so does the creepy visuals. We see Shaw bloody and shaking. Then a bloody Banny, Boozoo, and Jack Walten. The game restarts, however, this time on the opening screen, we see the gray rabbit, Rocket, as well as two bright red kids, a girl and a boy, glitching on and off screen. Instead of going back to the somewhat happy farm place we were shown before, a well with two human eyes appears. The eyes look directly at us, and then we see a bear emerge from it. The name the wiki has given it is Show Bear. The bear then informs us we're seeing a magic fountain of memories. This fountain is supposed to bring back forgotten or repressed memories. Sophie is then given paper to write down what she wants to remember. When she writes down, "Who are you?" she gets nothing in return. Yet when she draws two stick figures on the page, we are now told a story. A very important story our dear Sophie has forgotten. We're shown the outside of her house on May 2nd, 1974. First, Rocket starts to talk to us about clearing a corn maze, Rocket the rabbit, to be more clear, and behind him we can see the show bear from the fountain. Before Rocket can finish, however, it cuts to a conversation of Felix and Jack. Jack asks Felix if he can pick up and drop off the twins after their school event. Jack had to work late and Rosemary had to take Sophie to the dentist. Felix agrees even though he seems shaken up. Sophie remembers this conversation. Next, she returns to the game in order to find them, I believe, the kids, Ed and Molly. The bear from before tells her to do so since the memory is buried so deep in her brain. Slowly, she begins to remember everyone, including the faces she saw as she was looking for Ed and Molly. As she continues to look, the bear appears with a gift for her. The gift is a flyer to the event Ed and Molly went to. As she continues looking, the bear follows her, but soon after she stops from the sound of laughing or crying. Two red figures appear and she follows them and the story continues. Ed waits for Molly as she looks for her doll. The figure standing behind them is Felix. After Molly finds the doll, Felix takes them to the event. Sophie starts to roam around the school, but as she does, the Rocket Rabbit starts to move and tells her to follow it. The rabbit leads her to Ed and Molly. However, when she goes through one of the walls, she starts playing as one of the children. They were looking for Rocket, and once they found him, it was time for them to leave. They leave to go find Felix, and to no one's surprise, he's in the adult area drinking. He drives them home, feeling a little dizzy and unwell from all the drinking. The kids seem worried about him because of his reactions and slightly fast driving. He says he just wants to get them home quickly. Molly also gives him some reassuring words after he tells them he just wants to lie down. But at the bottom of the screen, the text just repeats, "It's all your fault." Then the short ride comes to a very quick and sudden stop. Sophie gets the bad ending because she didn't finish the alarm task in time. The next words we see are, "You crashed the car, you killed them," and a video of a weeping face with black tears running down its cheeks. Felix crashed the car and he killed Ed and Molly. We get more random and eerie images on the screen, then we hear screaming. Felix screaming. His screaming ends and we see an image of Rocket. Then we see Rocket next to two graves, Ed and Molly's graves. The bear tells us they didn't go home that night. He buried them here. He was too scared, but they found a way out eventually. Their two souls fused together and possessed the Rocket doll. We see the doll float, then we hear some voicemails from Jack. He's angry and confused. Felix didn't return home. The kids didn't come home, and Felix wouldn't answer the phone. Before things could get too heated, we hear the bear speaking again, saying,
But that's not all, is it? There's still something you forgot to remember. They've been waiting for you.
We hear more eerie music, and then we see Banny, Boozoo, and Shaw standing there present. As Sophie walks up to each of them, we see creepy images of their faces, distorted and bloody. Once she sees all their faces, Vaughn appears in the room. Then we see an image of it covered in blood. We hear more creepy music, then we see another gut-wrenchingly scary sequence of screams and images of what can be assumed to be Ed and Molly as flashing lights and blood is shown all over Bond. Then the chaoticness ends with Rocket sitting in a chair. A few moments later, we see two faces in the background, most likely being Ed and Molly, and that is where this video ends. After this video, we don't really get anything lore related regarding the series besides a couple videos on plushie release dates. Also around this time, there was a website that revealed more information about Jack Walten, but I don't think that website is up and running anymore. For 3 years, we don't get nothing regarding the series, but then 7 months ago, we get ourselves a trailer. The trailer is titled Souvenir, and in this video, we see several items strung up on string in an abandoned BSI facility. At the end of the video, we see a new animation style, and we see Bond the Bunny stringing up a baby toy and then moving out of frame. I will go over 3 more videos, that being a Walten Files mini episode, another trailer I believe, and the final video. I have already watched a Cybertech video, and even though most of the information we already know, it's more explained in this video, so I'll also be going over that. I will also try to talk a little faster since I don't want to make this video any longer than it needs to be, but if you do like this length, do let me know in the comments below. Now, let's get into video 7, Speculate. This is a news report type of video. It starts by introducing us to a new channel, Local 57. The video is corrupt and distorted at times, but here's what we know so far. The woman giving the report is Christine Marshall, and she'll be reporting some of the incidents that happened at the one and only Bond's Burgers. Apparently, when this report happened, the business opened 4 months prior, but unfortunately closed its doors less than a month later for good. Sometime after the place opened up, a numerous amount of rumors emerged saying that the place was haunted. This place has a lot of secrets according to local residents, secrets that we the viewer are already very familiar with. All of the disappearances have one thing in common, that being BSI. So far, 6 missing persons reports have been filed. From what we know so far, it's the following people: Jack Walten, Rosemary Walten, Brian Stells, Ashley P., Susan Woodings, and Charles Brooke. The Bridgeton Police Department Chief Detective mentioned that he went there 10 times in the past 2 weeks. While he talks about his experience with the company, we see a map of Bond's Burgers. He also mentions that he doesn't like the speculation people are putting on the company regarding the many disappearances. Another thing many people have mentioned about this place is the building's odd behavior. Lights and music being on well past the restaurant's closing time, car alarms as well as lights outside being on. However, the most bone-chilling occurrence would happen on July 19th. Blood-curdling screams of a woman could be heard in the building from 2 to 3 a.m., yet when police arrived and entered the building, nothing was found. A few days later, the place was closed down due to financial issues, but a lot of people have other speculations, one of them being that the screams heard in Bond's Burgers that night came from Rosemary Walten. The building has yet to be used by anyone due to the surrounding rumors keeping everyone away. As the reporter continues going on saying that the building has been riddled with break-ins and vandalizing, we see 2 missing persons posters, but the first one is hard to read. The second poster, however, if you paid attention to the many faces we've seen in the series, belongs to our beloved Susan Woodens. As the news reporter closes out by saying there is a disturbing aura over Bond's Burgers, the video glitches. A few seconds later, we hear an audio of a woman begging for help, and the original image of the news report glitches to reveal something else. We see Rosemary's Walten face again, but a few moments later we see her face overlaid the Shaw animatronic that is standing next to the one and only Bond. We see this image of Rosemary's face over the Shaw animatronic suit, but as the final few seconds of the video close out, we see a distorted image of the founder of Bond's Burgers, Jack Walten, with the text, "I'm still here." Even though this video isn't a theory video, a lot of people assume that Jack Walten possesses the Bond suit, but given how direct the series has been in telling us who possesses each suit, the fact that there is no face over the Bond suit only implies that he is in fact not dead. But in the latest video of the series, we discover who is possessing the Bond animatronic. But let's say hypothetically Jack was in the Bond suit. The first thing that should have led us to believe that that wasn't him was video to the Relocate project. Let's say, he kills Brian still, right? Him harming his wife in such graphic ways does not sound like Jack. From what we've known so far, he does care about his kids. He does love his wife. So why would he put her through that much pain? That makes no sense. And everyone else that we know in this series, we've shown explicit images of their mangled faces over the perspective suit. We have seen nothing about Jack except for his face being shown in random places in a video, not over any animatronic suit at that. Okay? I just had to get that out the way. Let's continue on with the video. Video 8, which is labeled 456, is like the video Souvenir, but not really giving us much information visually. We see the inside of a house, which is assumed to be the Waltens' house. We see the outside of a Bond's Burgers, and finally, we see the outside of another home. Even though we're not provided with a lot of information visually, we are provided with some information audibly, and this is what we hear. So will it be the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown as perishable, it is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. And it is sown a natural body, it has raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. I just want to take the time to thank everyone for listening. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. This video has taken a lot to make, a lot of effort, but I'm really proud with how it came out. And if you would like to see more content like this, please leave a comment below or DM me. Now, let's get into the final videos of the Walten Files. Video 9, CyberFun Tech. At the start of the video, we see balloons, empty cups, and the spring event banner. The same spring event Ed and Molly attended. Unlike the previous times when we saw them, we see them in a completely new animation style. As the two walk through the school, we get a shot of Rocket the Rabbit, then we hear Ed calling to Molly, telling her to follow him so they can find Felix. However, when the two find Felix, he is in the adult section, his head down on a desk with many drinks surrounding him. As the two enter the section, the screen turns bright white. Then a few moments later, we're shown a field with a bright white sky and a fence. We see this frame for a few seconds more than the BSI logo shows on the screen. This is the start of the Bond's Burgers commercial. It's a very short commercial that is soon cut, and we're shown the showstoppers. They look to be either painted on the wall or cardboard cutouts, and right in front of the cardboard cutouts, or the painted wall, is the baby doll we saw hung up in the teaser video Souvenir. The video cuts again, and we're shown the CyberFun Tech logo. A few seconds later, we're shown the menu for this video since it's one of the longer ones. This video contains 4 smaller videos, the titles being Bond's Burgers promo, CyberFun programming demo, Shaw joint movement, BSI cleaning procedure. First, we'll start with Bond's Burgers promo. Before we actually get into the promo, we're shown promotional art of the showstoppers, and right after that, we see a letter from Charles Brooke. The letter was written on October 10th, 1970, 4 years before all the incidents occurred. From the letter, we know Charles Brooke has been hired as the computer supervisor for Bond's Burgers. He's known the Walten family and the Kraken family, as well as Susan Wooding, sometime before the restaurant was even made, so he is very familiar with them and considers them family. He is very excited to work there. After the letter, we're shown the Bond's Burgers promotional video. We see 3 of the showstoppers first, Bond, Shaw, and Billy. We see boozoo next, but a YouTube URL is shown if you have the captions on. The YouTube URL didn't work for me, so if you do know what's there, please let me know. But anyways, let's continue. We see a brief image of him standing in the flower field next, then we see Benny. After a brief cut to some kids having fun, we see her dancing in a flower field with the creepy son behind her. We see Shaw singing next. Then it cuts to her picture being in front of a video of flowers like the previous 2. Yet before it cuts back to her singing, we see the backstage room of Bond's Burgers and her image flickering in front of it. Finally, we see the star and the leader of the showstoppers, Bond. Instead of seeing him in front of flower imagery, we see a red square pop over a background of a forest. Then we see a plain white screen with a creepy man staring back at us, but only for a moment. Whoever this face belongs to is someone we have not yet seen in the series, but will become very familiar with in the future. Now we're being shown the endoskeleton of one of the first models of the animatronics. CyberTelly, the mascot for BSI, then tells us we'll see how the animatronics were made. We see the Bond's Burger sign once more, as well as the image of that white being from before. Then we're shown more concept art. While being shown concept art, CyberTelly tells us that the showstoppers are not only the face of Bond's Burgers, but also Bunny Smiles. The art department for BSI was in charge of making multiple designs for these characters. Now, we learn that Rosemary Walten has done numerous pieces of the showstoppers before becoming the lead artist in BSI. She is in charge of making the final designs that would later be known as the showstoppers we know and love. It is also mentioned that she loved poetry and the theatricals. This would also explain why Sophie Walten found the designs of the showstoppers very familiar, since her mother did make the designs for them. We hear a voice audio from her before we cut to some more animatronics. Now we finally hear the voice of Susan Woodings, telling us that Bunny Smiles originally reached out to CyberFun to create the blueprint for these animatronics, but they became so invested that they decided to have a full partnership with BSI. Now is when we learn that Susan Woodings was also the lead technical engineer for BSI and was responsible for building the animatronics for Bond's Burgers. We see some old images of Benny and Boozoo, and then we see some animatronic heads on a table. Susan would then tell us a little bit more about their designs while giving us a close-up on Shaw's head and an endoskeleton, but right after that we see a close-up of Susan Wooding's face with some upside-down text. I took a screenshot of the image and cleaned it up as best as I could, so I'll put the image on screen now so you can read it. We get a quick shot of Benny's animatronic before we go on to the CT console section of this video. This console stores all the information about the animatronics in code, as well as giving them the ability to sing, walk, and interact with the audience. This console is also equipped with face tracking, where the animatronics can recognize certain people's faces and places. We get 2 letters about the BSI controller, so feel free to read them if you want. Now we cut to a section labeled the walk-around test, and this video was made January 21st, 1974. In this section, we hear and see an audio clip of Susan Woodings as well as Charles Brooke conducting a movement test on Benny and having her walk through tables without bumping into anything using the CT controller. Dialogue-wise, nothing really important happens in this section. Now we're onto the facial tracking section, and this video was recorded on March 7th, 1974. Before we get into the actual facial tracking part of this video, we hear a conversation between Susan and Charles talking about Felix's addiction. Linda, his now ex-wife, called in, I'm guessing to tell them that he wouldn't be into work today because he was out drinking. Charles feels the need to tell Rosemary or Jack about his drinking addiction, but Susan tells him not to, and they should just focus on the work ahead. And that's exactly what they did. While conducting their facial tracking scans on Shaw, Susan mentions that they have to do it again because even though the test with Ed and Molly did well, with Sophie it didn't go quite as planned. For small talk, Susan brings up Lily, which is Charles's child, who's spending time with her mother since they're divorced. Yeah, Charles is a divorced father. Woohoo. Well, that's not really a good thing. Before we're going on to the next section, we see the inside of a house, and right by the front door, we see a bunny animatronic that looks very similar to Rocket. The title for the next video is redacted, but we know it was recorded on May 13th, 1974. Whenever this video was recorded, it happened sometime after Ed and Molly died from the car accident. After Charles yelled out he was drunk while driving the car, Susan asked him to lower his voice. Well, she yelled at him to lower his voice. And the only other person we know who was drunk while driving was Felix Kranken. When Charles asks Susan how Jack has been holding up, she says not too well and that he hasn't been at work that often. Then Charles asks Susan if she thought the story Felix told them was a lie, and she does think it's a lie. She believes something worse happened to them, and she was right. Something worse did happen to them. As they continue to talk, Susan mentions that she wants to leave the room because of the creepy doll in the room. If you look to the corner of the screen, you can see a bloodied up Rocket doll. The two of them decide it's best to leave, so they go to the next room to go do other tests. When they leave, however, the Rocket bunny starts to move, and it moves to the boozoo animatronic trying to do a face scan. We see two blue squares on screen indicating that two people are trying to do a facial scan. However, it doesn't work, and we see 3 images of mangled kids' faces. Even though it says no faces have been found, right under those words we see the words Ed and Molly. We know from the previous video that both kids possessed the one doll, which would explain why facial tracking had such a hard time trying to recognize both kids. From this point on, everything else in the video will be more cinematic and we'll get actual animations for these scenes. So I'll just explain what's happening in each scene, but I do highly recommend you check out the CyberFun tech video if you do want to see these really cool animations. We're on to the next video, and at first glance it looks like you can't read the text, but if you flip the words, the title reads "The First," implying that Susan Woodings is in fact the first victim of the Bonsbergers incident. We hear muffled audio of Susan in the other room, but the room we are in currently is the room with Bon, Benny, and the Rocket animatronic. Slowly, an upside-down white face makes its way to the Bond suit and possesses it. Now, Susan enters the room and she has a radio playing with a chest in front of her. She appears to be doing some routine maintenance on the animatronics from them being wonky. She approaches the Bond animatronic with intentions of fixing him, but something in the room falls. When she turns around, she finds the Rocket puppet on the ground, but even then she still hears knocking around or sounds of footsteps in the room. She finds nothing, however, Bond has moved from his spot and is now in front of her. He reaches for her, grabs her face, and breaks her neck, but still she's alive. As her body hits the floor, he hovers over her. Now he's choking as much breath as he can out of her. Once she stops moving, he drags her body to the far end of the room and admires her. He admires the mess he made of her. Now we see footage from May 3rd, 1974 at 12:23 a.m. We see a car speeding down the street, then we get a look at who's driving the car, and to our surprise, it's Jack. He pulls up to a house with a look of anger and focus on his face. The house he pulls up to is the house we also seen in trailer 456. He gets out of the car and makes his way to the house. You can hear slow and heavy breathing coming from him. He rings the doorbell, then we see inside the house, and that's when we realize this house we're seeing belongs to Felix Kranken. The audio of his voicemails plays underneath the video, and we can hear Jack banging on the door, ringing the doorbell, calling out to Felix. We cut to see Jack Walten outside the house, angrily still banging on the door. He curses at Felix, then breaks down, begging him to please open the door, yet still nothing happens. He goes to the window, bangs on it again, peeking into the dark living room, saying he knows he's in there, but still there's no response from Felix. Then Jack says if he did something to those kids, he'd kill him. Static covers the screen, but now the static appears to be covering a hole. We look at the static for a few moments, then it zooms out and we see Felix. Judging from the way he's sitting, it looks like he's sitting in a hole he dug. Then we see a bloody Rocket Rabbit doll sitting across from him. We see the both of them looking at each other, covered in blood, the sound of static and water only being heard. It looks as though he's been crying. Then we see the aftermath of the car crash. We see him, his glasses broken, covered in blood, and we get a glimpse at the back seat. The windows also covered in blood, but there are no sign of the children. The static disappears and we see the woods near the road where the car crash happened. We see 2 graves, one for Ed and one for Molly. But there's an additional grave, the one he's sitting in. From the immense guilt he felt from the accident, he was supposed to be in that one. He couldn't bear the thought of living with what he did. But he picks his head up out the grave and he sees Molly's backpack covered in her blood. He takes the children's belongings, so far that being the rabbit, a shoe, and Molly's backpack. We find the source of the running water near a cliff. One by one, he tosses the things into the lake, besides the rabbit. After throwing the things into the water, he outstretches his arms and walks to the ledge, tightly closing his eyes, with every intention of jumping off, not wanting to be alive and bear all the consequences of his actions. But he stops at the last moment, falls to his knees, and stares at the water, with the bloody rabbit beside him. More static covers the screen, and now we're back at his house. We hear a voice recording of him on May 5th, 3 days after the accident. He says he hasn't been able to sleep since last week. He finally told them what happened. It was in his office. He says that was probably the most painful and longest hour of his life. Having to tell them what happened to their kids and see the anger and pain in their eyes. He knows they hate him. Now he doesn't know what to do or what's going to happen with him. What's going to happen with his business or life. And the fact that they're still buried where the accident took place eats him alive every day. When Rosemary asked him about the doll, he lied, saying it was at school and they just forgot, when in reality, the doll was in his house and he couldn't seem to get rid of it. When we see the doll next to the window, we see 2 faces appear. At first glance, you might think it's Jack, but when you realize that the kids are possessing the doll, it makes sense that those are the ghosts of the kids looking in at him through the window. A few moments later, their faces disappear and we see a door. Knocks can be heard on the door, as well as the sound of muffled crying or screaming. A few more knocks go on and we hear a very familiar voice. It's Molly, calling out to Uncle Felix. When he rushes to go open the door, he just sees the doll and starts crying again, begging it to stop, pleading for the voices and the knocking, just everything to stop. He apologizes and begs it to stop once more. Then we see the faces of Ed and Molly on the screen, covered in blood and looking distorted. Before their faces can linger on the screen any longer, we jump ahead to July 1st, 1974 at 1:36 a.m. in Bond's Burgers. Again, we see the Rocket Rabbit on the ground. We go to the POV of Rocket only to see what appears to be Bond doing something. But even as music is being played over, we hear an eerie sound that can't quite be explained. But as time goes on, we hear him say, "Shh." There's no one else in the room, so it can only be assumed that the sound we hear is Susan breathing. Thanks to a commenter by the name Callie69, they revealed to us that the type of breathing we hear is called analog breathing. It is when someone is not getting enough oxygen, but is gasping for air. It usually happens due to cardiac arrest or stroke. It's not considered true breathing, it's just a natural reflex that happens when your body is not getting enough oxygen it needs to survive. So she isn't quite alive or dead, but her body is trying its hardest to stay alive. When Bond goes to put the bandy head on Susan, we see Rocket's eyes close, not wanting to witness such horrific events any longer. When it opens its eyes, they change color, one green and one brown, each color most likely representing one of the kids. We return to that white field from earlier in the video, yet this time we see Ed and Molly in their red forms. They're going back and forth about what to do. Molly wants to help Susan, but Ed doesn't think it's a good idea. The place they're in, I would consider limbo. Limbo, in this case, will be considered an uncertain or undecided state, a place where souls reside when they either can't or don't want to move on to the other plane. Molly goes on to say, "He hurt her. He made her bleed. This isn't fair. I don't want her to hurt anymore." When Ed responds with, "That's not our problem," we see a Bond's Burger sign in the distance. Molly protests, begging Ed to help her find Susan. She doesn't deserve this. Ed finally agrees and asks her to stay quiet, meaning there is indeed someone else there, or someone else is coming. Ed fades away and we hear the voice of a woman. It sounds dry and like she's gasping for breath with every word. It's Susan. She emerges from the fog, begging someone to help her. The sound of broken whispering and a poorly played piano plays as she continues to ask for help. Then we hear him. A male voice finally speaking, saying, "I can hear you." He speaks out to her, giving her reassurance instead of answering her question. She asks again, "Where am I and who are you?" The voice shushes her, telling her not to worry. He tells her she's in safe hands and calls her by her first name, so the spirit must know her. I said I referred to this place as Limbo, but the voice refers to this place as Wonderland, her new home. Afraid, she asks if she's dead, but the voice cuts her off by saying no repeatedly. Well, not yet at least. He tells her that her heart is still beating, but her body is functionless. She's paralyzed, which would explain her ragged breathing. He tells her out in the real world she's slowly suffocating, but here she would be okay, trying to convince her to stay. He mentions that the spirit doesn't pass on as fast as the body does, either meaning he has experienced the same situation or he's seen it happen multiple times. Susan asks again, "Who is he?" and we finally get our answer.
Where are my manners? Pleasure to meet you. My name is Bond, and you're Sue.
This is the face behind all of the deaths. Susan, Rosemary, Brian, Ashley, Charles. As she goes to ask another question, she's once again cut off by Bond. He says he's been watching her for a while and he calls her friend. He knows she likes to fix his things and offers to fix her even though he is the reason she's broken. She asks what is he talking about and he offers her a gift. When she takes a look inside, it's a paper mask, a purple bunny mask, one resembling Banny. He tells her it's the new you, a wonderful gift that will eventually become your new body. Like a beautiful butterfly, he says, she will be reborn. Bond tells her that she doesn't have to listen, but she doesn't have any other choice. The spirit can't survive without being tethered to a vessel. He knows she's scared and he was too. He reassures her again that everything will be okay. But as she begins to speak, he apologizes for what he had to do. As he tells her that the hard part is over, Bond's animatronic hands reach out to her covered in blood and he takes the mask from her. Now instead of seeing the ghost, we see an animatronic Bond holding the mask, telling her, "You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs." The camera goes back to her face, but before we see her, we hear banging coming from a door. Then we see the Banny suit, and right underneath the animatronic eye, we see her eye open. We hear more of her staggered breathing as we hear footsteps of someone entering the room. We go back to Wonderland and we see Bond in the distance on the other side of the fence. He slowly disappears and the kids return to Wonderland. With both of them gone, they aren't sure where to start looking for Susan or if she's okay or not. But they decide to explore Wonderland. They walk into the distance, both holding each other's hand as the song "We'll Meet Again" plays in the background. And that is where this story ends. For now.